Oh, yeah. All right, we are back again.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
Happy week 10 of Daily Fantasy. It's good to be back here for the Daily Fantasy sports show here.
Yeah, we've missed you, but it's good to see your smiling face once again and, get right back into it. Last week I talked to, I like Justin Fields. Like, I like Justin Fields a lot. And by Sunday, I was really in on Justin Fields. I decided to, go extremely heavy on him in tournament play. And I did a $50 single entry into I think it's the 250 red zone, where first place is $50,000, and I built a Justin Fields stack with Mooney, with Hill as the run back, and I also had Mixon on that team because I was trying to fade a little bit of the chalk, and Mixon allowed that to happen. And next thing you know, everybody's going off, and I'm sitting at second place for like 3 hours. By the end of the early slate, the 8-game early slate, I was in second place, sitting at that $20,000 mark. Probably wasn't going to hit first place. As a matter of fact, I was done, so I wasn't going to hit first place. Neither was the guy in first place. But there were 2 games left, and unfortunately, I fell down to 12th place. I ended up taking $1,000 on that, but out of 6,000 people, taking 12th place, pretty good. So just another example that the process works. In my best weeks in fantasy football, the first 2 weeks of November, those are historically the only weeks I win. So you can probably tune out most of the other weeks on this show, but this is one you're probably not going to want to miss, because this is when success happens. This is when the money happens.
That's
And
great. Great job with that team, Al. I know that it's
thank you.
tough to watch in the middle of it. You get frustrated watching, but man, at the end of the day, if you just picked up your phone at the end of the day and looked at it, and you're up $1,000, not bad, not bad.
No, not at all. And then on top of that, I took home a lot of money in tournament play.
Yeah.
I didn't have any like top 10 finishes, so it wasn't like big money. But in tournament play, when you're entering, say, like $75 and 150 max, and you're bringing back 200, it's a win. Anytime you're bringing back money in a tournament play and covering your expenses, that's a win. This week's really strange. Like, it's just ugly. It is bowling shoe ugly, to quote the great Jim Ross, because there's like 4 games that are projecting of an over and under over 48 points. Every other game in the 10-game slate, so 6 games, are projecting near the 40-point mark, 40 to 43 mark, are the rest of the games. And unlike the last couple weeks, there's really no game in that lower tier that excites me. There's no game that says, oh, this might steam out. You have Denver, Tennessee, 2 duds. You have New Orleans, Pittsburgh. I mean, Andy Dalton is dead, and Pickens or Pickett or whatever the hell the kid's name is just isn't there yet. And even Buffalo, Minnesota, you have the question of Josh Allen. I don't think he's going to play. So that takes a lot of the steam out of that game. Houston, New York. I mean, who wants to touch that? Indianapolis and the Raiders, garbage. The Rams and the Cardinals, garbage. And Green Bay, Dallas, garbage. So there's really no game that's worth getting excited about outside of those top games in the with the over-unders. But just looking quickly at some of the positions, at quarterback, the highest ceiling on the slate right now, projecting, is Josh Allen, and it's very unlikely he's going to play. So that moves it down to Patrick Mahomes, but you're spending almost $8,000 for him at 7.9. So the third guy with the highest over-under on the slate the highest ceiling on the slate is a guy by the name of Justin Fields, who kicked ass last week. The problem is he's 6,500. He's extremely cheap for that ceiling. So right now, 20% of the field is projected to play him, which is just, it's too much. But sometimes in fantasy, you got to decide. This is usually a running back situation. Usually with quarterback, when the chalk is that high, it's very easy to walk away from. But with running back, you often land in situations where the guy is priced so good and his ceiling is so realistic that fading him is probably a mistake. And I think that's where we're at with Justin Fields in this game with Detroit. It's just a good environment. I'm probably going to limit it to maybe 10% on exposure. And I don't know if my single entry is going to be a Justin Fields team this week, but it's hard to find somewhere else to go. If you want to get away from the chalk with a similar projection and a similar price point, is Tua Tagovailoa, who I think is also a great play. I think he's the pivot play. I think that's the play I'm probably going to put my most equity in, just because it's going so against the field and it has the exact same potential as Justin Fields. Justin Fields had 170 yards rushing last week. Is he going to do that again? Probably not. Is he going to throw for 2 to 3 touchdowns to make up for those yards he's not getting on the ground? Probably not. So there's a very realistic chance that Justin Fields, has a good game. He gives you 25 to 30 points, which would actually be right where his ceiling is. But at 6,500, 30 points, it's not really that exciting. Where Tua could get there through the air at 6,700. And if he gets through the air, you're probably stacking him. And if you're stacking him, you're probably having a good game. And some of the best projecting wide receivers on the comeback are on the Cleveland Browns. So, that game just makes a little more sense. Although Armand St. Brown is also projecting extremely well. He's projecting like the 5th best wide receiver this week. So you have a clear run back with Chicago, as do you with the Miami. But those are the two I'm definitely looking at the hardest. Trevor Lawrence excites me a little bit. It's Kansas City, it's Jacksonville, and right now Trevor Lawrence projecting about 8% ownership, and there's a lot of good pieces in that game. But Trevor Lawrence hasn't had this breakout game yet, so you're really playing on hope. He's had under 19 fantasy points in 7 of the last 9 starts. So it's not exactly exciting to play Trevor Lawrence. But if Kansas City could push the Jacksonville Jaguars, this is a good spot for Trevor Lawrence. And then Patrick Mahomes would be the other guy I'm looking at if you want to spend up to get contrarian. He's still not a great contrarian play because he's coming in at 15% ownership and he's 7,900. So, it's just he has the ceiling. He has a real ceiling that only, Josh Allen and Justin Fields have, and Tua for that matter. So, those are the plays. I am curious to play Case Keenum at 5K if Josh Allen were to sit. Case Keenum has run a lot of spread offense. So, the guy knows how to get the ball downfield, and the coaches of the Buffalo Bills still like to throw the ball. So that's what I'm looking at for quarterback. As far as running, any questions on that, Clark? Any?
No, thoughts? I was in. I just when you were talking about Fields and how he's being treated not quite like normally the way to handle this with the 10 to 20%, you just ride it out. It's normally with a running back, but with Fields, he being the quarterback, but the ability for him to just blow by guys, he can break that 40-yard run every game. Like, I think you're looking at 100 yards if this continues, even though everybody's knowing it now. I know you have Aiden Hutchinson over there on Detroit, a Michigan alum from the University of Michigan there, but I still think there's the possibility. And I also wanted to mention that the St. Brown brothers apparently have a $1,000 bet over who has the most wins during the season. So there's a little bit of a additive incentive there. I hear that St. Brown, since he dropped that ball on fourth down last week, he's been out every night catching the ball. He hasn't been sleeping. He's been eating, breathing, catching footballs. So there is my pick of the week, man. Not a St. Brown, but EQ. EQ
right,
St. Brown Bears.
If you want to win a lot of money this week, you play the 2 St. Brown brothers. You play E. St. Brown and Armand St. Brown.
You heard it
and
here,
then,
Al.
And then now here's the key, Clark. Here's the big one. At the running back position, you play the Cook brothers who are playing each other with Buffalo, with James Cook, and of course you have a Devin Cook over there, Delvin Cook for Minnesota. So, you do the double Cook and the double St. Brown, you're getting so much correlation that makes absolutely no sense. It's all hereditary correlation that you're just going to win a lot of money. So
it's perfect. There.
Yeah, good call. I like it.
You're welcome.
Running back for me this week is interesting because there's 5 guys I like, and that's about it. And I don't see a lot of pivot plays that are comfortable. So I'm just going to be eating all this chalk. And those guys are Derrick Henry, who is at 23% chalk. You have Saquon Barkley in an absolute smash spot. He's at 20%. You have Alvin Kamara, who I thought would actually be lower owned because he had such a shitty outing last week. No, he's at 28% ownership. Wow. And then you have, Josh Jacobs at 25%, and Dameon Pierce, who, when I'm generating a ton of teams, when I'm hand building a ton of teams, he's the guy who's in like every lineup because his cost is so efficient on a week where there's only expensive options at running back. He's 6,300. He's your best bet at ceiling and price. So, I mean, the guy's getting 23 touches a game. He's a smash play, but he's coming in at 30% ownership. He's the most owned running back on the board. He's going to be extremely hard to fade. All these running backs are hard to fade. And then you start looking at guys who might challenge them. You're talking about Delvin Cook, who, he's averaging 20 touches a game. But Buffalo, I mean, is a pretty stout team against the run. They're holding running backs to an average of 4.1 yards per carry, which is the NFL's 10th fewest fantasy points to the running back position. So, I mean, you're taking a gamble there. And what's his ownership? His ownership's under 5%, though. So, I mean, you have to do it. You have to, if you're building, 150 teams, even if you're doing 20 teams, you got to have some Delvin Cook in the mix. Because his ceiling is realistic and he has 0 ownership. Aaron Jones is in an ugly situation. He's at about 5% ownership. My model loves him. They actually really like him, but it's not a good situation against the Dallas Cowboys, who are stout against the run. And I mean, this is a revenge game. You have the googly-eyed head coach of the Dallas Cowboys going back to the Green Bay Packers. So, we'll see what happens there. But Green Bay loves slowing teams down. I mean, they're going to run the ball, but they just may not be running it effectively. Jamal Williams is in a great place, great spot, but how much does Swift play? So you got to wonder that. And he's at almost 15% ownership. He's cheap. He's 5,900. So people are going to play him and take the risk that Swift doesn't get a lot of touches, which is most likely the case. A guy that nobody's really on, that I kind of like because it's a massive pivot off of the biggest chalk on the board, is David Montgomery, who's, playing a team that's terrible at stopping the run. Montgomery has taken control of the backfield. He's outtouched Herbert 15-7. Herbert's just kind of coming in as a change in pace back. So he's regained control of that backfield. And the Lions give up over 5 yards per carry and 11 touchdowns over 8 games. So Montgomery is like a good play. His price point is ugly at $6K. Actually, that's not too bad. I'm actually really comfortable with that. And his ownership's at about 5%. So if you think Justin Fields is going to have, an okay day, or possibly the Bears come out running the ball early and the run game works because the Lions are giving up 5 yards a carry, they may just kind of not push Justin Fields to go out there and risk getting injured. They might control him a little by handing the ball off more, which they like doing. They only throw 25 times a game.
Well, and if the Detroit's defense is now, scouting Justin Fields, I mean, maybe that's the pivot there for the team, right? Go to the running backs and let's try to get that going. I know they did a little bit last week, but Fields, I mean, did it. The top rushing team in the league, Al. I think that both of those guys have to be good plays.
Yeah, 6K? Nobody wants 6K, 5% ownership. and an absolute pivot off of Fields. Like you don't play Fields, don't play Montgomery in the same lineup unless you're trying to get creative with their stacks,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about in a second when we actually break down that game. But yeah, and then James Conner, it's like it's a horrible spot for James Conner, and it's ugly. But it's James Conner. He's taken back control of that offense, and he's at under 3% ownership. So I mean, I'm probably going to set a limit like 5% ownership on James Conner, maybe 15% on Montgomery, maybe 5 on Jamal Williams, 5 on Aaron Rodgers, 5 on Delvin Cook. And then I'm going to go balls out on all those other guys I mentioned because I like those plays and I'm willing to eat the chalk. So, yeah. So that's really the running back situation this week. Wide receiver, it's another one where it's just the ceiling's not great and there's not a lot of cheap plays. Um, there's almost no cheap plays I'm comfortable with. Uh, Peoples Jones of the Cleveland Browns, the number 2 wide receiver of the Browns, is probably my most comfortable play under 5K. He's 4,300. Khalif Raymond, the number 2 wide receiver of the Detroit Lions, 44. Um, Chase Claypool's 48. Is he going to get involved in this Bears game? And that's it. Like, that's all I'm looking at as far as cheap plays. So that means you're going to be spending a lot in the middle this week. And there are some pretty good plays. Amari Cooper, as I mentioned. Smith Schuster, I think, is a good play. Jalen Waddle, although he's 76. That's getting a little steep. Christian Kirk at 5'9". Rondell Moore at 5'2". He's not going to get a lot of deep balls, but he's going to get a lot of catches underneath. It's not a great ceiling, but a great floor. Darnell Mooney, if you think the Bears are going to pass a lot this week.
Hey Al,
Yeah.
Equinemius St. Brown, 3.5K. Just saying, and
Okay.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6.9K. 5 to 10% ownership on is it Amon-Ra? Amon-Ra? I'm terrible.
He's the sun god. We'll just call him the sun god.
Sun god. There you go.
Amon-Ra.
10% ownership, but Equinemius is only 5. Just saying.
Yeah, my projections have him on St. Brown at 20% ownership.
Wow, okay.
And I'm going to say that's the case. He's the highest ceiling at the cheapest price. So people are just going to gravitate towards him, and he's in a smash spot. I mean, the Bears secondary, you can feast on the Bears defense. We know this. The Bears are suddenly exciting because their offense has come alive, but their defense is shit.
Absolutely.
So the other guys in the same ceiling range of St. Brown is Hopkins, who I'm pretty much off this week. I think he's in a horrible spot. That Arizona team is just shit this week against the Rams. The Rams are going to dominate that game. So, Hopkins is 8K, and then Waddle is 7.6. So $1,000 more for Waddle, who projects a little bit worse than Armand St. Brown. And then Diggs is 8,300, but is with Josh Allen not playing, is Diggs' ceiling still there? I think it is, but you have so much less risk just playing Armand St. Brown. So I think a lot of people are going to play Armand St. Brown this week is what I'm getting at. It's not going to be sneaky. He's probably the best play at the wide receiver position on the board. As a matter of fact, he's the highest rated player in my model. So tight end is like, man, I'm considering playing the double tight end this week. I seldom go there, but you have one guy who could break the slate, and he's in a smash spot to do it, and that's Travis Kelce. He's 7,800, so you're going to be paying to get him, which means you're going to have to spend down at wide receiver if you're going to make this play because there's no savings anywhere. You may even have to play the double tight end to get Kelce. So that means giving up your slot, your flex to a tight end, which is, shitty. But Greg Dulcich is in a good spot at 3,400. The problem is he's at 30% ownership. That's going to be an easy fade for me. Pat Freiermuth, a little expensive, 4,200, but pretty safe play if you're doing a double stack and you're still going to save a lot of money. Foster Moreau, 3,200. Right now, he's only projected about 10% ownership. With the news of Waller being ruled out, I think his ownership is probably going to get up near 20%, but that's going to be a great play, especially if you want to double stack with Kelce. I think I like that a lot. Another move is, although this guy's got a lot of ownership, and I think he's a clear fade. Evan Ingram's 3,300, and you could double stack him with Kelsey and get the correlation in that game stack because they're both playing. It's Kansas City versus Jacksonville. The problem is Evan Ingram has a history when he's not 100% of not going 100%. We saw that a lot in New York, and he's just an easy fade for me at 23%. I'm not playing Evan Ingram outside of game stacks. Dawson Knox, I mean, if the guy gets a touchdown, he's playable at 3,300. But those are the tight end options. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of everything I'm looking at on the board. So let's go to those games. And we'll start with Chicago and Detroit, just because Justin Fields is the shit this week, and everyone wants to get there, and who can blame them? The secret to this game is, you could go the Jared Goff route and be completely contrarian. Jared Goff has under 3% projected ownership, and there's a lot of decent pieces. You stack with St. Brown. You double stack with Khalif Raymond. Brock Wright is interesting. I don't like the play, but he's 2,700, and you're going to be able to do a lot of good things by playing him in this stack, and then because you play this game stack, you're going to walk away with a lot of money. Even if you play Fields, he's 6,500, and if you were to play Brock Wright at 2,700, I mean that's not a great run back, but maybe you double run it back with Amon-Ra St. Brown. The problem is getting away from the chalk in this game. I mean that's going to be the secret. Fields is at 20%. Everybody's running back with Amon-Ra St. Brown. The good news is the Bears pass catchers are very underowned. So Darnell Mooney's at about 5%. You said St. Brown. That's man.
I mean, it's a stretch. It's a stretch, right?
Come on. You're talking about a narrative, which is fun. And you bring it up. I'm definitely going to touch it now. I wasn't going to touch it at all, but I'm upgrading it to a play.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not going to.
I'm going to max it out at 3%. So
where are you on Cole Kmet? The last 2 weeks he went from 1 touchdown down in Dallas, then 2 touchdowns last week. It seems like another touchdown dependent guy. He caught 5 of 6 targets last week. It seems like it's becoming an option where Fields, he can just blow out of the pocket and dish it off to him, and gain 10, or sometimes he runs it. So I don't know. What do you think?
In a week where there's so many good tight end options, it's a harder play than it should be.
3.4K, and I'm seeing 5%. I don't know what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think if you're game stacking, I think that's right. I think if you're game stacking Fields, I mean, I think it's a pretty good play. I mean, I'm not fading it. I'm not going to play Cole Kmet outside of this game, but 6 targets last week, 41 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was the number 1 wide receiver on the week with 22 fantasy points. But again, it was a week where there was no top dogs playing. It was easy to win that tight end spot. Where this week, I don't think 22 points is going to be the number 1 wide tight end. I mean, Kelsey's probably hands-on favorite to win tight end this week. But in a game stack, yeah, I like Kmet. I actually have his ownership under 5%, under 3%.
Okay.
So, yeah, good play. And if that holds true, then yeah, if you double stack Kmet in Mooney or Claypool with Fields, suddenly the Fields play is fine. That ownership, you're saving so much ownership on those wide receivers, you're going to make it happen. Now, the question is the run back of St. Brown at 20% ownership. That's going to get you back up into ownership trouble. Where Khalif Raymond at 4,400 is in a really good spot. And I mean, that would give you your 3rd wide receiver at a real good discount. So that's worth considering. But I'm definitely going to be playing St. Brown in most of my run backs. But I am going to try to get a little creative and try a little bit of Khalif Raymond. If, say, I'm running 15% Justin Fields, 10% of the run back's going to be Armand St. Brown. 5% is going to be Raymond. I don't think I'm going to do any Brock in the run back situation. So, yeah, I mean that's the way to attack this game is just get creative with Justin Fields. A double stack was the better play last week. I would have won a lot more money if I would have stuck to my convictions of double stacking and double stacked him with Komet. I would have. I would have walked away with at least $5,000. So that was a mistake on my part. Don't pull an Al. Don't make that same mistake. Double stack this game just to reduce the ownership of Justin Fields while still correlating and making your team stronger. So that's the way to do it. The game I really like.
Can I ask you one quick thing on the game? So the Bears are favored in it. 3 points. You get the home one. So what? That's basically a toss up in the NFL. I don't know. I think maybe that's changed with the betting lines, but you gotta. And you mentioned this a little bit, but you have to like the running backs. Jamal Williams at 5.9, and Swift if he's playing right at 6.4. I mean, either one. Is this going to be a game where they're your run back for Fields, right? Like, because their ownership's not that big.
Well, Swift is tough.
In the lead, so is what Vegas is saying anyway, right?
Yeah, Swift is tough because he's on a count limit. He's not 100%.
Oh,
and if they get behind Jamal Williams, it's just a better play and just lets Swift rest. So Jamal Williams at 50, and Jamal Williams is cheaper, so you're taking on less risk at 5,900. He does come with a lot more ownership. I mean, Jamal Williams projecting at about 15%, where Swift is projecting under 3%. But I don't really like the running. This is such a great situation for a passing game that if you're playing this stack, your hope is it's going to be a passing game. And the game is going to be won through the air, and those wide receivers and those tight ends are going to help get you, a lot of money. If you're fading this game and you're not playing the game stacks, those running backs do make a lot of sense because now you're saying, okay, maybe Justin Fields doesn't have a great game. Maybe this game with two lousy defenses doesn't turn into a shootout for some reason. It's cold. It's going to be cold in Chicago. It's going to be one of the first cold games of the year.
I was going to ask you about that. A big temperature drop too is happening. Like by the end of the day today here in Chicago, it's going to be 36 degrees and yesterday's high was 76.
So yeah, I mean, you know how that fucks with us as citizens of Chicago.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so get outside and practice today and tomorrow is what I'm hoping,
But even like just living in Chicago and having a 70-degree day, and then suddenly it's 30, 20 degrees, it hits you because you just felt this like sweetness, and now all of a sudden it's horrid.
Al, I tried to stay outside as late as I could yesterday to soak that in, but there was still this feeling of dread going to bed, like, tomorrow's going to be bullshit because it's warmer. It's going to be warmer when I go to work here in an hour. When I drop the kids off, a heck of a lot warmer than it's going to be when I pick them up in the afternoon. It's I'm not. Here we go. That's the 35, end of it.
35 degrees is the projected forecast right now.
With a little bit of cloudiness, a little overcast for Sunday. That's the forecast there.
By the way, the Vikings-Buffalo game is projecting a little bit of snow. So,
we're there.
The dome games are all miserable. It's the Cardinals-Rams, which I've talked about being shit. And it's the Colts-Raiders, which, I mean, you just can't trust the Colts. That team is just in such a horrible situation. Their GM is going crazy. He hired the center to be the head coach. So, maybe that happens with the Bears and we get Olin Kreutz as our head coach. But
I think my Colts guy, by now it's been enough days, has talked themselves into this. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But it was crazy, man. Irsay, what is going on?
So I really like. This is probably my favorite game on the slate. It's Miami and Cleveland. I went to Miami last week, not actually gone, but I went there with Chicago, as my favorite game.
82 degrees there with an 11 mile per hour wind in Miami.
I just really like the fact that the Miami Dolphins cannot stop anything through the air. And Yet they have one of the most accurate, proficient quarterbacks with two of the best wide receivers in football in Hill and Waddle. Like, it just sets up beautifully for a game that's going to be a little under-owned. The highest owned player projected in that game is Tyreek Hill at 18%. Tyreek Hill is in an absolute smash spot against the Cleveland Browns team that they're not going to be able to contain him. A lot like with Chicago last week. He's 9,100, which may be the most expensive play on the board. I'm not 100% sure, unless I pull everything up here. I might as well.
So high ownership at 9,100, huh? Wow. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He's the highest owned player. He's $100 more than
the way he gets separation, and maybe it was just seeing wide receivers that are actually good at playing football. But him and Waddle, just the way they can get open, phenomenal. It'd be really great to have that for a young quarterback.
He's $100 more than Cooper Kupp right now, which tells you something. Justin Fields is 88 with 5% ownership. But again, like that game in the snow, it's just not sexy. So I mean, Tyreek Hill has a legitimate chance of being the number one wide receiver on the week, and he's in this game, and he's expensive at 9,100. But if you play the Cleveland side of this game, and I know that sounds horrid.
I know a minute ago you said Justin Fields. You meant Justin Jefferson at 8,800. All right, just
yeah.
No,
thank you. I got Justin Fields on the mind.
We're good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett, man, he's under 5% ownership. Everything is telling me don't make this play. Including the guys I trust. In the last 8 starts, he's only put up over 18 points one time. So like this isn't I was excited last week to play Justin Fields at that ownership, which is about where Jacoby Brissett is sitting, and the price point is about the same as Justin Fields last week, going up against Miami. So he's the same situation as Justin Fields. He's also a rushing quarterback. But it's Jacoby Brissett, and we know he doesn't have the same. He's not the athlete that Justin Fields is, but the game environment is there, and the last 3 games this guy's played, he's passed over 250 yards.
Oh.
So he doesn't have a lot of attempts. He has 45 attempts against the Patriots, which was an outlier. 27 against the Ravens, 22 against the Bengals last week. But in 22 attempts, he completed 17 of those attempts for 278 yards and a touchdown. Now, if he throws for 250 yards and gets 2 touchdowns, and he rushes for, say, 40 yards, even 30 yards, which would be he's rushed once for 40 yards this season, once for 30 yards this season. He averages around 15 yards rushing. He does have 2 rushing touchdowns. Like, we saw what a rushing quarterback can do. And let's face it, Justin Fields, Jacoby Brissett might be a better passing quarterback at this point of their careers than Justin Fields is. Justin Fields obviously a much better running quarterback, but Jacoby Brissett's been accurate. So, I mean, I'm just making the case that I am going to go heavy in tournaments on Jacoby Brissett. And I might be the only guy doing it. He's projected under 3% ownership. But at 5,400, I can now play, Hill as the run back. Amari Cooper, again, the beauty with the Miami Dolphins is they can't stop the pass. Amari Cooper is a legit wide receiver. He's under 10% ownership. He's between 5 and 10% ownership. He has a ceiling of about 20 points. I think he can break that ceiling. He's 6,500. And then Peoples-Jones is 4,300. He's projecting for around 10 points. Like, it's a sexy play. Donovan Peoples-Jones has broken his projection in 4 of the last 5 weeks. He's exceeded projections. So it's just a good play. And then I'm not sure if Nuke is playing or not. That's a situation I'm monitoring. I'm definitely going to check the injury reports later today. But Njoku is another great play on this slate, 4,100 in this game. And then obviously, you have so many awesome options. Well, really two. You have Waddle and you have Hill as the run back. So, yeah. And then if you're playing Tua, good luck to you because I think he is the second best play on the board, second only to Justin Fields with under 10% ownership. So he's a better tournament play than Fields. The problem is he's 6,700, and the two guys you're going to want to double stack with is Waddle at 7,600 and Hill at 9,100. It's almost impossible. I don't like Gesicki in this game. So there's really nowhere to run as far as price goes. So
that makes sense.
yeah, so I think if you're playing Tua, you're probably going to have to single stack just to make it work. And that's kind of getting away from the way you should be playing Tua because he's a pocket QB. So yeah, I mean, I want to play. I would prefer to play the Miami side. I just don't see how you do it. But if you play the Brissett side, I think you have some options. It even behoove you to play Jacoby Brissett, stack him with Amari Cooper or Peoples-Jones, and double stack Waddle and Hill.
Ooh, the
That's
double
the comeback.
Okay. I like that, Al.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Cleveland Browns. I hate Clark, how much I hate the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Cannot stand the Cleveland Browns. You know how much I love the Chicago Bears and Justin Fields. I've been a Justin Fields truther since day one.
There you go.
And I'm saying I'm probably going to fade the Justin Fields to play the Cleveland Browns.
May I once again go away from the data for you and go a little narrative? Is this don't they get the other quarterback for next week? Isn't he eligible to be back? So this is kind of Brissett's swan song. Aren't you going to want to show out during your swan song? There you go.
I think so. I like that. I like the narrative. The curtain, we'll call it the curtain call narrative. And I think he may want to show the people. He may want to try to upstage the hand jerker, the massage the pervert. In his last game there. So
yeah, I don't know. Just saying.
All right, so we've talked Bears, Detroit at the 48.5 over and under. We've talked Miami, Cleveland at the 49.5 over and under. Let's see, what's the other game?
How about Jacksonville, Kansas City? No.
Yeah, I thought there was one other. I thought there were 4 games that were projected well, but man, is it only 3? Wow, it is.
Yeah,
I guess because Minnesota Buffalo, I think the over and under was high and it dropped.
Yeah, it dropped out because of Allen. That's what I was going to ask you the other day when we did the Sports Addict, the podcast on Tuesday night. You had mentioned that Vegas still was kind of leaning that Allen might play, but then I looked last night and it seems like that's dropped out. What is the over under, like 43 now or something?
Yeah, 43.5. Ouch.
I mean, that's the Josh Allen effect. This is maybe they'll surprise up there. I don't know.
Like I said earlier, I am going to play some Case Keenum.
Okay.
You still get, you still have access to Diggs at that point. You still have access to Justin Jefferson. If you single stack, or you do the play I really hate, and you double stack with the tight end with Knox. Sometimes backup quarterbacks tend to favor tight ends quite often. So Dawson Knox suddenly becomes more playable. He's 3,300. And then you could possibly play Diggs and Justin Jefferson in that game.
Okay.
Just by playing Case Keenum, who again, like I said, he's not a stranger to high potent passing attack offense. Like that's kind of what he is. He's a pocket passer. You're going to lose all of Josh Jacobs' rushing equity, but you are getting a guy who's more than capable of throwing the ball. And the Buffalo Bills coaching staff loves throwing it. So that's a sneaky play that I'm probably going to make as well. And that's probably my favorite of the under-owned games with the shitty over and under. Okay, so now we'll talk about the number one over and under on the week, and that's Kansas City, Jacksonville. And I do like this game. No surprise, I always like the cheap quarterback with the lower ownership. So I'm more of a Trevor Lawrence fan this week than a Patrick Mahomes. Um, Trevor Lawrence has not had a very good season. He hasn't had a baller game, but he is in a position in the game environment to make that happen against a potent Kansas City team that doesn't have the best secondary, and you have wide receivers in good positions. Like I'm playing a lot of Christian Kirk this week, not just in this game, but at 5,900, I'm going to play him in a lot of my other games. Although he is at 17 to 20% ownership right now, so there is some risk there. But then you also have Smith Schuster at 6K. He's at about 10% ownership. Yeah, and I'm not touching Tony. Obviously Kelsey is a great play. ETN is another great play at 7,100. I might stack Lawrence with ETN and Kirk, and then run it back with Schuster because I wouldn't be able to afford Kelsey at that point. Yeah, I mean that's the only issue with this game stack is the guy who has the highest ceiling is by a long shot is Kelsey. And Kelsey's 7,800. And it's just hard to get there otherwise, unless you're double stacking Lawrence with the wide receivers. If you're doing Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, then you can absolutely run it back with Kelsey. But if you want ETN, it's probably not going to happen. Let me see if ETN even correlates with Lawrence. I know ETN does catch balls. Wow, man, the guy in the last 5 games he's upped. He's beaten projection all 5 times, and every week he's beaten it by more. I mean, Travis Etienne, since they made that trade, has just been balling.
What you definitely have to watch out for up there, Al, is that weather you were talking about. Possibility of snow, moderate or heavy snow showers, 36 degrees, but the wind, 16 mile per hour. So, that means gusts can probably get up to 25. Just saying.
In Kansas City?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're in Kansas. I'm talking Buffalo. Hang on. I'm sorry.
It is going to be a cold game, but
it is going to be cold in Kansas City. Thank you.
I'm
here. I promise.
That's all right. I know it's first thing in the morning. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning for you.
Overcast, 37 degrees, 7 mile per hour winds in Kansas.
It's evening for me. I just had my, I'm having the meals delivered now.
Are you?
I signed up for one of those programs where,
and then you make them.
Yeah, you just 2 minutes in the microwave and you get like healthy, meals made fresh.
Oh yeah, nice. So, I like that.
Yeah, the ownership. So Kelsey's the best play in this game.
Yep.
Like if you're stacking this game, just find a way to get Kelsey. So ETN does not correlate with Trevor Lawrence all that well, meaning that in games where Trevor Lawrence has good games, ETN doesn't have as good of a game. He comes under projection by about a point. So, if you think that Trevor Lawrence is going to have a good game here, you could fade ETN in this game, and then now you're playing the double wide receiver or the tight end. You could play Ingram. Like I said, I don't like Ingram this week at all. I will play him in a game stack, though, because that isolates him to just this game. Problem is, he is the highest projected owner play in this game stack, and I think that's just too crazy. Zay Jones, man, 4,400. The guy's just shit. But I'm definitely going to be playing him in this game stack. Christian Kirk, obviously smash play, as I mentioned. Smith Schuster, also a good play. But Kelsey's the guy I want. Kelsey's the guy. I'm going to do anything I can to get Kelsey in these game stacks. If I'm going 15% on Trevor Lawrence, 10% is going to be Kelsey, and then 5% is going to be Smith-Schuster as my run back. And then if I'm playing the Kansas City side, man, I want Kelsey still. It's just going to be really hard to do. It's probably going to be a double stack with Schuster, maybe Scatling. But yeah, I mean, it gets thin. Nicole Hardman's been playing so well. Like, I think he's holding back Tony and Sky Moore. Yeah, like, it's just a confusing game to play, especially with Kansas City almost 10-point favorites. I mean, do they put the brakes on? Traditionally, they don't. So, you just hope Kansas City puts up a lot of points. I wish I could play a Kansas City running back, but it's a 3-man running back committee that it's just too confusing to play. There's just no ceiling there. So, yeah, that's about it for this game.
Okay.
We're like 15 minutes ahead of schedule.
Isn't that something else? It's crazy. Just because, I mean, there's only a few games worth. I mean, you're bringing up a game with an over under of 43, Al, or whatever, 43 and a half, 44, somewhere in there. And it's because that's interesting too. It really is. Like, I don't know.
I'll just tell you the good plays in every game that I'm not playing.
Let's do it.
So in the Tennessee-Denver game, both of the pass catchers for the Denver Broncos, even though the over-under in this game is only 38 points, I think you could play either Judy or Sutton, but I would definitely not play both of them in the same lineup. It's like pick your poison. They're $100 difference between the two, but they're projecting well, and I'm going to have a little bit of them. And they're both projecting about 5% ownership. I think that's appropriate. Derrick Henry is in a smash spot, as we talked about. I mean, this game is probably just going to be on the ground, and Tennessee has no reason to throw the ball. So, I mean, this is just a feast spot for the big dog. He's cheaper than he usually is, too. He's 8,300. Like, I'm probably going to want a lot of Derrick Henry this week. And then Greg Dulcich. Unfortunately, he's at 30% ownership, but he's a good punt play at 3,400 at the tight end position. So, yeah. Let's see. We talked about Cleveland, Cincinnati. Pittsburgh, New Orleans is interesting. 40-point over and under. Both quarterbacks are just dust. That's why this game isn't projected very high, and that's why the stacking is impossible. But Alvin Kamara is in an absolute beautiful position, and Chris Olive is Olive, whatever the fuck his name is, under 5% projected ownership, 6,800. There should be nobody on the Pittsburgh Steelers who should be able to cover him. So if Andy Dalton can get him to the ball, the guy's in an absolute smash spot. He's one of my favorite plays that I've highlighted on my game board. I only have 4 wide receivers that I consider must plays, and that's Armand St. Brown, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, and Chris Olive. So, yeah, man, like good play. And then Pat Freiermuth's in a good position for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's been balling at the tight end position. They're going to go to him. He's 4,200. So a little expensive, but worth the play. We talked Chicago.
I just dropped Freiermuth in a league and picked up Komet. I shouldn't have done that.
No, you shouldn't have done that, but that's right. Okay. Yeah. I won't.
You won't fault me for that?
I won't get too heavy into the numbers and why that's a bad play, but that was a bad play. Yep. Yeah, especially with Chase Claypool being traded to the Bears, it actually opens up more opportunity for Freiermuth. Buffalo, Minnesota. We talked about Come on. The computer's slowing down now. My computer doesn't want to
Of course.
play along. Um, let's see here. Smash plays are pretty obvious. Stefan Diggs, great ceiling, great price, 8,300. The question is Josh Allen going to play? I don't think it matters. It does matter, but I don't think it matters that much. Justin Jefferson is a smash spot as well, 8,800, a little more expensive. Delvin Cook, great pivot, under 3% ownership, has a legitimate ceiling. He's 8K. It's an ugly play. It's an expensive play. It's a high risk play, but it is absolutely an off the board play that if you're looking to save ownership, if you're going into one of these games that has a ton of ownership and you're playing into it, like let's say you're just playing the Bears stack as is with Armon St. Brown as the run back. If you could get to Delvin Cook, I mean, you're going to have money to spend. That might be a smart play to get off of ownership and free up your chances a little bit. Because, if Delvin Cook goes off and he's running back number one this week, and you're in that Bears stack where everyone else is, you've now differentiated yourself from the field pretty heavily. So, I mean, that's just like a something to consider. Houston and the Giants, I mean, god awful, the Houston Texans right now. Cook doesn't want to play for them. He sat out last week with an alleged injury. He's back this week, but he doesn't want to play them. The Giants are good at covering the ball. The only play in this game are the running backs, both Saquon and Damian Pierce. Matter of fact, you may want to correlate the two and just play them both in a stack. That's interesting. It's expensive, but you can get there. But the ownership is crazy. I don't know that the ownership's going to be crazy if you do the double stack with those two, though. Pierce is the most owned player on the board for obvious reasons. He's getting opportunity, and all they can do is run. And Saquon, obviously, same situation going up against the Houston Texans. All right, let's move on down the board here. All right, give it a second here. It's a little slow. We talked Jacksonville, Kansas City. So the Colts, the Raiders, there are some plays here, and they're basically, they're all Raider plays. I'm not looking to play any Colts players. It's just a mess that, we talked a little bit. That team is such a mess right now. But Josh Jacobs is in a good spot. He does have 25% ownership. Devontae Adams is in a great spot.
Didn't they just have they just threw two on the injured reserve there in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah,
Renfro
you just lost
Waller.
Yeah, you lost Renfro, you lost the Fro, and you lost Waller. So yeah, I mean that could just mean more targets for Devontae Adams. I'm a little concerned about the play, but he did raise a bitch after the game last week, calling out his head coach. This guy went 9 catches for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half of the game. And then in the second half of the game, he got 0 points.
Wow.
So, he went off on his coach. So maybe this week they just feed him the ball. They just keep feeding him the whole game. And that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm probably going to go pretty heavy, especially if he's at 5% ownership. I think this is a must play in a lot of my game stacks. As a matter of fact, I have him highlighted as yellow, which is usually like a cautionary deal, and I don't understand why I do. I'm trying to figure out what's making me not want to play Devontae Adams, and I guess it's just the 41.5 over and under. But yeah, Devontae Adams, top 5 wide receiver this week with under 5% projected ownership. If that holds, absolutely, he might be my highest percented played wide receiver of the expensive of the high priced wide receivers by Sunday. I mean, again, at 5% ownership, I can't not play a lot of him. It'd be crazy not to. Josh Jacobs, we mentioned, good play. Foster Moreau, the Island of Moreau, 3,200. Waller put on IR for, out at least the next 4 weeks. He's been balling. He's played well. He's at 10% projected ownership right now. I think that goes up to 20. He might be one of the higher owned tight ends, but he's got a realistic ceiling. So I really like that play a lot. Adams and Moreau in this game are fantastic. And then the Rams and Cardinals, what do I have to say about Cooper Kupp? I mean, it's Cooper Kupp, and he's in a great spot against Arizona, and he should ball. So, great spot for Cooper Kupp. A couple of injury concerns there, but he's been playing pretty well. DeAndre Hopkins is in an absolute shitty spot, and I don't like the play at all. But he has 5% projected ownership with a high ceiling, so I am going to have to play him a little bit in tournaments. I may end up full fading him by Sunday. That's how down I am on him. But, that 5% ownership. But if Adams is at 5% ownership and Hopkins is at 5% ownership, let me just see the price difference between the two. Yeah, I mean, it's $700 more for Devontae Adams. But I want to play him 80% over Hopkins in that situation. And if I need the $700, I'll play Hopkins. That's the only situation I'm going to play that Hopkins. And otherwise it's all going to Adams. James Conner, we mentioned, that's just a pure pivot play, ugly situation. Basically, all the Arizona guys are bad plays, minus Rondell Moore, who's going to get a lot of underneath stuff, and he's going to give you a good floor. And then for the Rams, like I said, Kupp, Higbee, I guess, is playable, just not very exciting. And then Dallas, Green Bay. Green Bay's been pretty solid against the pass. CeeDee Lamb's projecting about 10% ownership. I think it's a bad play. So yeah, I may be doing a full fade on CeeDee Lamb by Sunday.
Okay.
Aaron Jones is projecting around 5% ownership, but again, it's against that tough as nails defense of the Dallas Cowboys.
Of note for Dallas at Green Bay, 28 degrees with a 6-mile-per-hour wind. All
right. A nice balmy day in Green Bay. We'll be experiencing it here, unfortunately, as well. Allen Lazard, he's your best bet if Aaron Rodgers is going to have a good game. I just don't see it happening. The only way I'm playing Allen Lazard, I might do a couple Dak stacks, and Lazard's going to be my run back. That's the only Green Bay Packer I'm going to play outside of a little bit of Aaron Jones to be contrarian. In the Dak stacks I do play, I'm probably going to go Gallup and Schultz and then just ball out elsewhere because I'll be saving so much money. Gallup at 4,900, Schultz, the tight end, at 3,800, and then Dak at where's Dak at? He's at 66. So, I mean, that's a nice, cheap stack, with a Lazard run back that could be a fun play. It gets away from Lamb, who, like I said, is just in a bad spot this week. So, yeah, that's the slate. I think that we covered just about everything that needs covering. Let me see some notes on CeeDee Lamb here. Yeah, CeeDee Lamb hasn't cleared 100 yards in 18 games.
Okay.
It just hasn't been very exciting. And Green Bay yields the 7th fewest wide receiver points. So those are the knocks on CeeDee Lamb. And yeah, that's it. Good luck to you. Yeah. Whatever you do at defense, that's fine. Like I said, my favorite play is probably going to be the Cleveland Browns. I'm definitely going to be involved in the Chicago-Detroit game, and a little bit of the Minnesota-Buffalo. And then I'm gonna do my best to figure out Jacksonville, Kansas City, because it's an enigma right now.
Yep. Hey, as we mentioned, we do this show every Friday. Grab us for your morning drive. Grab us for your commute home. We do it live every 5 a.m. every Friday. We talk about the main slate. Best of luck to everybody with that. On Tuesday nights, live at the Sports Attic, it's a Chicago sportscast. We'll talk about Bears, but we talk about all different kinds of things. That's every Tuesday night at 6:30 live at the Sports Attic. Al?
That's it. Find me at Larcher Than Life on Twitter. That's LARCHER.
There you go. You can follow the show at Larcher Lorensen. Follow Al. Al, I see you posting quite a bit about your thoughts and what have you. That's where I first found out that Fields is going to be such a high ownership, and it's he's no longer the secret.
Nope, the secret's out, my friend. The QB1 has arrived. He's been QB1 for the last 3 weeks in fantasy, and let's see if that trend continues.
There you go. All right. Have a good one.